I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it's sink or swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not a thought of giving in. Welcome to the shrimp tank. Want to put it all together, this is big things. Doing big things, we ain't in the same league. Running a campaign, Roadie 2016. Like a phone to die, putting me in charge. I'm a general, from the front, I'ma lead the charge. Like a federal, fell on my lap, never. Going hard as ever.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode here on the Shrimp Tank powered by Celsius Beverage. This is your first time tuning in. You catch all our episodes up on our website, shrimptankpodcast.com. We come live to you every single Wednesday right around 1 p.m. So I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Kevin Cox, and we're joined with over 30 FAU students, part of Kevin's class right now. And how cool is this? That all the students are going to come up and ask questions during today's episode, but we're going to jump right in. We have Nancy Harvey. She's the CEO and founder of the Harvey Academy. Nancy, can you give our students a quick pitch, right? We like our students to learn how to explain their business in under 1 minute, or sometimes people get carried away. They go to networking meetings and people go on and on for 6-7 minutes and people don't have that attention span anymore. So go ahead, Nancy, tell everybody a little bit about what the Harvey Academy is in under 60 seconds.
Go. The Harvey Academy is a FCIS accredited school from 3rd to 12th grade, and we serve neurodivergent students. What does that mean? That means students that have ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, anxiety, a diagnosis of anxiety, all those students that don't do well in a classroom of 20 or more students. And the fact is 20% of the population of the world is neurodivergent. So there is a great need, and we're trying our best to meet it.
All right. Nice pitch. Short and sweet. So tell us, what is the Florida Council of Independent Schools? That's the acronym she mentioned, FCIS. What does that mean? Is it public? Is it private? Is it charter?
Good question. It is an accreditation that is very hard to attain for private schools in the state of Florida. And it takes about 18 months to 2 years to do a self-study where there is 18 standards that we have to meet. And within 18 standards, there's maybe 4 or 5 questions you have to answer. And if your answer is no, you better explain why. And then there's an analysis. It's utterly exhausting. It looks at every little inch, every nook and cranny of your school, but it's an excellent process to go through because in the end, you learn so much and it makes your school so much better. And we earned it about 1.5 years ago.
All right. Well, conceivably, if your numbers are right on the neurodivergency characteristics, conceivably there's some neurodivergent students in here today. So tell us a little bit more how you address that. What do you do? How does the school work? What should some things maybe I should be doing for my class?
Oh, I could give you a few tips.
All right.
Absolutely.
She's coming back, Kevin. She's coming back to your classroom.
Yes, there's definitely neurodivergent students in this room. You know who you are, or maybe you don't know, and you're just struggling with the fact that you can't sit still for more than 3 minutes, much like my husband who's sitting in the back of the room.
We don't have that Kevin problem, right? I'm not one of those people.
So one of the many things I do is I limit the class size. This would never happen at Harvey, a room of 30 students. It's just too much distraction for at least 20% of you in the room. So our class size in the lower school, it's no more than 10. Upper school, I push it a little. We have one class that's 14, only because that works for that population. The physical surroundings of the facility, the walls are not this dark. Of course, that works for this studio. They're like a very soothing, pale blue. The floors are vinyl plank, so it's quiet. We do diffusers. We never, ever turn on the overhead lights because we have so much natural light. So all of that is very soothing to the student, to all of us.
I'm ready to go there. This sounds relaxing.
Yeah.
Kevin, what are your thoughts? Like, I think we should head right over there.
I'm starting to think
should.
I may need some kind of clinical assessment because I'm thinking this class is a little too big for me. I hate the lights in all the classrooms around here that are so bright and point straight down. So, it sounds like a pretty good place for me to host a class and a nice class size.
You're more than welcome to come by.
All right.
I would love that.
And where is the location?
Tequesta, Florida. So
Okay.
it's it's under an hour from here, I would say, on a good day, not at rush hour.
Nice. Well, I'm going to rapid fire some questions. Jason can jump in too, because we had some student team work on developing questions just for this podcast, and they came up with some great ones. So first, if there was one thing you could change about the current education system, K through 12, what would that one thing be?
One thing.
That's it.
It might put me out of business, but they would do what I do. They would shrink the class size, and that would be fine if they put me out of business, because I'm all about the student and not about me. And that's what all my faculty feel and have to abide by. If they could shrink the class size, if they could identify and welcome and embrace neurodivergent students and the way they learn, which is very different from someone like me who's mainstream, that would be a beautiful thing. And all students would be happy and learning well. And
All
not
right,
thinking they're
class
stupid.
size.
Okay, well, I got to jump in here because realistically, we got to talk about money and operating a business, right? We would all love that, but then it comes back to dollars and cents.
It
So,
does.
so how do you stay profitable as a business, shrinking the size of the classes?
Well, I do charge tuition. I do offer all the wonderful, very generous scholarships that the state of Florida, the Department of Education offer. That helps greatly. I do stay within the realm of right in the middle of private schools in my area. Once again, I'm not trying to make money. I'm a teacher. I did not become a teacher to make money. I never meant to own a school.
Yeah.
I'm just more concerned about staying in business, where it's profitable enough that you can afford the right teachers,
Yeah.
right? Because it sounds like a teacher's dream to have,
It
instead
is.
of 30 students, 5 to 8 students,
Mhm.
for example, and that obviously raises tuition costs.
Mhm.
And then just sustainability,
Yep.
right? There's only, so many grants available, and you're chasing grants frequently to
Mhm.
make sure that you stay profitable. Or we talk a lot about on the show, right, Kevin? It's just like avoiding grants and creating a separate arm of, nonprofits, like we saw with the puppy show, had like what I'm trying to say, like a coffee shop, for example, or a thrift shop.
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge. Grants take a lot of time. Luckily, as Nancy mentioned, right, we have the state of Florida that's standardized kind
That's
of
key.
across the board. That's going to help parents, but the
Mhm.
school might also qualify for grants if they want to do research. But again, all that comes at a cost. And, this is the Shrimp Tank. Here's where we talk business.
Okay.
Does it make sense, right?
Yeah.
The cost benefit analysis of conducting research, applying for grants. I could conceivably see opportunities through the Department of Ed, National Science Foundation, maybe even NIH, but again, that's the business side of it, right?
Mhm.
How much are the grants, but how much does the research cost? What's the time commitment? These are a lot of things that I look at too with the center that runs on a lot of grant funding, our entrepreneurship center, and we always need more. So how do you kind of address those? You mentioned tuition, the private. You have any other great strategies?
Well, I started out as for-profit. I started out as a tutoring center, and I never changed that status because I don't want a board telling me what my teachers are worth and what I'm worth and that sort of thing. I want to be completely in control. So I've always been for-profit. So there goes the grant opportunities.
That's all right. But let me jump in right there. It's really important. And I feel like not everybody will recognize the importance of it. So opportunity to teach, right? For-profit is very different than nonprofit in terms of influencing the potential sustainability of this business, right? FAU, most educational institutions are a nonprofit, which typically means you might be able to have some carryover, but in terms of retained earnings year over year, right? That safety net, those cash reserves, you can't really effectively build those up and expand as a nonprofit oftentimes because you don't have a profit by definition. And that's where those funds typically come from if a business is operating efficiently.
Right. And I've always been in the black. There's obviously, as I explained, there's such a demand that every year I grew and grew and grew to the point where I had to become a school because I had students coming to me that had this thing called dyslexia, but they couldn't afford me because I did charge a reasonable fee. So I became a school so I could offer other scholarships. And then a few years later, I became accredited. And I do analysis. I check all my competitors. And every year I do, well, for the past 5 years, I've raised tuition. This past year, I raised it 6.5%. And every year I'm touring parents. It's just, there's such a need that I've obviously, as a business owner, it's a concern of mine. It does wake me up at 2 a.m, but I've honestly never struggled financially. I've always been in the black. I pay my teachers what they would make in the public system, which is very expensive. It's probably 75% of my budget, but we have a very nice profit. And part of the accreditation with FCIS, which is really good, they require a financial audit which costs $10,000 every time you have it done. So that's a big ticket item for a small company like mine. But once again, it establishes the fact that I am in the black and I'm stable financially. And then my teachers know that. And then my parents know that.
Yeah. And we were just talking about all the ideas. The students in my class, we do kind of an experiential methodology where they all start businesses. We were talking about
That's
their
fun.
ideas just last week. And I mentioned, other than solving a problem, which you also do, right? Nancy's solving a problem for parents and students. Another way to come up with an idea is find an area where there is unmet demand. And it sounds like she's also landed in one of those categories, right? So creating value by solving a problem and fulfilling unmet demand, right? More people want the thing than is available. We have a few industries like that in South Florida that are consistently busy, too much demand, and it results in a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Nanny, what's the biggest struggle in your business? You said things keeping you up at night, and often we talk about being in demand, what Kevin's speaking about, but it comes with, risks associated with it, right? You have to hire employees, go through the hiring process. Like, that's never easy. People leave you. But at the end of the day, like, what is it that keeps you up at 2:00 in the morning, I guess?
That I succeed with every student.
Okay.
I don't, there are plenty of families that come to me, and for whatever reason, when I look at the profile of the child, the psychoevaluation, the testing results, the grade report cards, if I don't think they fit a typical Harvey Academy child, and I don't think we can succeed with them, I need to turn them away. And then the next step, which FCIS requires, is where am I going to recommend them? And the hardest thing, the greatest challenge, is being able to recommend them to a school that I'm happy to recommend them to. And for the most part, that's for children that have autism, but they're level 2. Other than L's for autism, we don't take level 2. I don't know where to send them. That is my greatest challenge right now. That is a very desperate situation for these children and these families.
All right. Well, let's get back to some of these fun questions, and we'll circle back to the business stuff. So what's the most surprising unconventional method you found to be effective in teaching these students? Something surprised you, or just, I wouldn't have thought that would have worked that well, or something creative?
Or like when I had to let go of the control a little bit and listen to my faculty.
That's what I was going to ask. As you're growing and expanding so rapidly, then you have to give up, control of a lot of things.
Yeah, that's probably my greatest challenge. But I'm doing pretty well. I feel like I'm saying FCIS all the time, but they did come to me and say, Nancy, everything's in your head. You got to write it down. You got to hand off, responsibilities. One thing that they was suggested to me, and I had to let it go, was they can have phones in the morning until 8:15, because I wanted to ban phones. I think phones are the devil. Just saying. Social media. I know you probably don't feel the same, but I think it causes so many problems, mental health, and the list goes on and on. So I wanted to ban phones from my campus. My faculty said, no, Nancy, this is working. They hand them in at 8:15 and they return them at 3:00. And very surprising, 98% of the time it works. So I had to let that go.
Yeah, that's kind of a unique scenario. I've seen some of the data on that, and no phones is a very effective policy that, believe it or not, some of the students in here might not believe it, depending on, their high school experience, but everybody likes it when phones are banned, even the students as well, right? So the data on that and the research has suggested that, yes, if you're the parent of somebody who's in high school and you say you can't have your phone at school, well, yeah, obviously the kid is not satisfied with that, and that's a terrible outcome. But the truth of the matter is, if nobody has a phone, instead of you're just kind of like the outcast who doesn't have a phone because your parents are, stricter, more cautious, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If they do it across the board at the whole school, there's lots of experiments and entire states that have looked into this and done it. Everybody's more satisfied because the phones were making people anxious, and you feel like you had to check and you want to see what other people posted and who was commenting and all this nonsense you don't really need while you're there to do what you're there to do.
Yeah.
But you have to do it across the board, not just here and there.
What about work environments, Kevin? You think it will ever get adapted there, where all of a sudden you go to work and you're like, for the next 3 hours, you got to put your phone in the bin, and you get it out, at lunchtime?
Oh,
Like anything like that. Imagine calling like a landline only to get through to somebody.
oh, I'm guessing there's some large corporations that very much do that. That sometimes are in the news for the way they treat employees.
Yeah.
That's definitely a thing. In a professional career, I don't know.
Because it drives me crazy sometimes. Like, you know, I have staff with my brand Owl, and sometimes like I'm having a meeting and like it's like ding, 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 ding. And I'm like, come on, please, like just turn your phone on silent, not on. Sometimes when you just put it like not on do not disturb, which completely silence, it's just on the silent mode, it still vibrates and the desk is vibrating, and you just can't concentrate, and you get interrupted, of course. And even team events, one of the best things I did with my team once, we went to Chris Rock, and how cool is this? We went over to the Hard Rock, and they were required to put our phone in one of those little pouches. And you know what? It was one of the best experiences with our team, because you know what we had to do? We had to talk the entire time and just really connect. And we weren't all staring down our phone. And then we didn't miss any of the jokes from Chris Rock. Like we literally like had to listen. Where how often are we like at a venue and you know somehow we're like, oh crap, did I just look at my phone for 12 minutes straight?
Or you're
and you miss
filming it
things.
and you're not engaged in it. You're just filming it for
Yes.
a later time.
And even like I do it all the time. Like yesterday, I went to watch my son play basketball, and somehow like I got, you know, an email. I quickly looked at it and I somehow went into the vortex. I'm like, crap, I just missed 7 minutes of the game. And I missed when he just shot a basket. And it was like, oh my God, you see your son? I'm like, crap, I missed that. Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's interesting. We're talking about just removing the phone, but everyone doing it at once, creating such a unique experience.
Yeah,
Right.
I have a rule of thumb that I use for like phones, emails, notifications. It's if anything I'm doing involves more than $10,000, then I turn everything off. Now it doesn't happen that much because I'm not involved in that many things, but yeah, there was something that came up this morning. I think I had a text from Jason during that time period, but it was some paperwork, and it was like, all right,
I'm worth $10,000, guys. He
Yeah.
texted me back.
No, his text was the one I missed. I ignored completely.
I don't know. You texted me back within 30 seconds.
No, I finished what I was doing. Money coming into the Adams Center, which is always a great thing. Okay, so another question. For the longer term, right? So back to business. We need more of these schools, it sounds like.
Yes, you do.
So
Everywhere.
do you have a plan for that? Do you have an expansion plan? Do you
I
want to
do.
teach other people to open schools? Do you want to
Yes.
start a franchise? Do
All
you want to
that.
have
Keep going.
Tell us.
Keep
Tell
going.
us. Well, what's up first, and then what's
Yeah.
the big vision?
In the short term, my husband and I, as the business manager, we're in discussions with a developer to build a school in South Florida. But yes, the long-term biggest dream, because neurodivergents are everywhere, is that we franchise this or just replicate it in some way, shape, or form so that it lives on long beyond me, because the problem is not going to disappear when I do. So that's my greatest dream, to teach other educators how to create another Harvey Academy where they're not local in Tequesta. Another venture that we're doing in the interim, which is much more achievable, you know, in the short term, is where I'm partnering with Dr. Nora Wall, who writes courses for students who are neurodivergent, and they're online. And we're offering them through the Harvey Academy so that high school students who can't pass biology or can't pass geometry take these courses at their school in, you know, Nebraska, because I'm accredited, so they can take it anywhere in the country, and they get the credit and they move on. And they literally could sit in their geometry class with their, what do they call it, earbuds, and have their laptop open and do their work. And it's supported by Nora Wall's staff, or the teacher who's, you know, being a good teacher is going to stop in and see how they're doing and facilitate. And that way I can reach anyone in the country.
Wow,
that
that's
needs our-
fantastic.
Yeah.
So you
I'm
mentioned
very
you're
excited about that.
kind of mentoring and guiding others and
Mhm.
building this out. Who was your biggest role model or mentor?
Gosh, good question.
I didn't write it.
I got to be honest. I'm reading it here. He took it from the class. You got to
Yeah,
give them
yeah.
credit right
Good
here.
job, whoever that class.
Who did it? Who wrote that question?
Sister Marion
Raise your hand.
was my ninth grade English teacher, and she just made class fun. You know, she taught us, I remember, Romeo and Juliet, and she went off not off topic, out of the book, and we produced the play Romeo and Juliet because we loved it so much to the rest of the school. She was definitely a mentor of mine.
I'm going to throw that back at you, Kevin. I never heard you answer that one. Who's your biggest role model?
Oh, yeah, I don't have a good answer to that. I don't think, I just kind of, I've tried to get some people to mentor me and coach me, and I must be unmentorable or not very coachable. And they always say it's kind of there, but they always say like,
when the time is right.
yeah, they say you don't need any help. You got everything figured out. And I'm like, no, I'm trying to get you to be a mentor. And they're like, you seem to be doing great. You don't need it. But I'm always looking. I've been helped and learned from a ton of great people. Dr. Eric Shaw, who's here at FAU as an emeritus professor in the marketing department. He's celebrating the marketing department being named after him on February 21st at a wonderful event as he is going into retirement. He's been here years and years and years, taught me a lot. And then lucky enough, right down the hall, Siri Turgensen. If I can keep up with her, I think I'm going to continue to learn more and more and more. But, she is an ultra marathon runner, so it's not easy.
Nice. Well, I think it's that time in the show where we're going to have FAU students come on up to this microphone right here and fire away questions on the fly. So if you guys have questions, come on down. And looks like we got two. It's like the Price is Right in here, Nancy, right? Come on down.
Anyway.
All right. Number 22. We always got to do like a prize in the future, Kevin, where we just have a special prize if you come up. And then we unlock.
Watch out. This first one's a little bit of a wild card. Go ahead.
Okay, go for it.
How have you been able to get the perspective of your students and use that to grow the school and get better?
So speak to this. Yes. I often talk to the students. They know my door is always open. And I always tell them, I'll listen to whatever you have to say if you have a problem, but don't come to me unless you have a solution, because otherwise you're just whining. I tell my faculty that too, in a nicer way than what I just said. But I always tell them I'll always listen, but I may not do what you want, but I'll always listen. But yes, there's absolutely been times when they came up with great ideas.
Yeah, that's a big thing we covered throughout this class, right?
Yeah.
Is user feedback. User feedback. And I say user feedback because I deal with a ton of software and platforms and games and stuff like that. And you think of users, but it's really customer feedback, right? And that customer experience. And at the end of the day, the students, the parents are your customers and the faculty is your team. So that's super important.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Agreed.
like that because you can apply that to a startup in any company.
You can. Yeah.
Absolutely. Great question.
Great question.
Hello,
Hi.
my name's James.
James.
I actually work on campus with student accessibility services. So I just wanted to ask you a quick question. We deal a lot with more time on tests and note taking and things of that nature.
Special accommodation.
Yeah, special accommodations. So I just wanted to ask you if there's one thing you would change about how higher education would help with neurodivergent students or students with accommodations, what would you make in terms of that change?
Well, I'd have them come observe at Harvey and see what we do. We do take from psychological evaluations the recommendations, but typically we do that for everybody. We're multisensory, so that's one thing I would love. Every student, no matter how old you are, loves to put learning in your hands, right? Just think back to when you had a project and it was so much more fun when it was clay in your hands, you were making the planet Neptune or whatever you were doing. I remember doing that. I was in 4th grade. It was a really long time ago, but it was so much fun for me. So if multisensory learning was more widely used, even in higher education, then every student and teacher would benefit. It takes a lot of effort to plan and facilitate, but it's worth every minute that's invested.
I agree. Thank you.
You're
Great
welcome.
question.
That was a great question.
All right, we got one more before we get
My
to some
question's
fun
more
ones.
broad, I guess.
Okay.
But what would be your biggest advice to students, like higher education students that are neurodivergent, but struggle in like a regular class setting or don't have access to like the Harvey School or something like in regular classrooms that can be applied? I guess what would be your biggest advice to those students that struggle in like a regular class setting?
And they can't find an alternative.
Yeah.
Are you saying college or across the board?
Like mostly college, because I guess it applies to mostly us.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess college.
if there's a college student at FAU or any college that never got a psychoevaluation, so you don't have a diagnosis, so you don't have the paperwork to prove to your college that you need extra time or whatever, I would just be my own advocate. I go to the professor and say, listen, I can't, if they're worth their weight, like my friend over here, maybe they should be able to say, okay, sit in the front of the class. If you have trouble, if you have something called dysgraphia, it's hard for you to write notes down, get permission to listen, get permission to use your phone to record the lecture, right? Take pictures. That's another reason why I, in the past, have allowed phones in the classroom, because they'll take pictures of the notes on the board, right? And copy them later. And Talk to Text is a great app. There's so many technological advantages that you don't need a diagnosis in order to access. But your first place to go is the teacher in front of you.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree. Not all professors, but I think most all of them are very much like me. Maybe not quite as laid back or as crazy with podcasts and all kinds of other stuff. And maybe that's a problem. But in most cases, we're there to accommodate students, especially if a student sticks around and it says, like, I really want to get something out of this class, but and if you start with that, it's like, well, what can I do? Yeah, because my main concern, or not really concern, annoyance, is the students who are like, I don't even want to be in this class. I'm gonna sit in the back and be quiet. I'm like, that's fine. You can get your C, get your degree. But if somebody's passionate and wants to learn, we'll do whatever we can. That's the job. Go ahead.
Hi.
Do you have any plans further down the line other than with your school to help neurodivergent children who can't afford the school or qualify for any scholarships?
Good question. Well, if they're neurodivergent, they can qualify, but they have to get the psycho eval, which costs a lot of money. So valid point. I have played with the idea of a third career, maybe volunteering on a board of education, or because they need my voice. These students need my voice. I've even played with the idea of, I'm looking at my husband because he's saying don't say it. Maybe even, going into local politics to change things. My third career, once I get Harvey Academy up and running without me there every day, because that makes a difference, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Change the laws.
Yeah.
You
Good
were right.
question.
Your husband did make a face. I was looking at him. Right when you said the word politics, he's like, ah.
All right, Nancy, you want to hear a pitch in the education business? So I work with a ton of startups, hundreds and hundreds of them. I come up with all kinds of crazy ideas, and I want to pitch you one that is for the education industry, supposedly as their first customer. And it's a tech product. And watch the students' faces. They are not going to like this one. And I can't wait to get your opinion as well. So the problem that they want to solve for is sometimes students miss class, right?
No way. They do, Kevin?
They do.
That's crazy.
And theoretically, and this is somebody here at FAU, by the way, that I won't name, and theoretically, to be excused as an absence, they need an official kind of medical note or some other kind of evidence of whatever. So this software would take in that information and then verify the accuracy of your medical excuse data.
Okay.
They're going like this right now, Kevin. They're like, don't like this one.
How would that, give me a scenario? How would that work? So Sally comes in with a doctor's note that she had strep throat and she was out for 3 days. How does this app work?
So I don't know.
You don't know
I'm
yet?
not the technical
They're not
guy.
going into the
Look,
deep
you
of
just
it,
have to assume they can do it. If you ask that question to a
From my
technologist,
phone,
you're
I
there
can
for
assess
2
it.
hours, right?
Real quick,
Like,
do the students like this
they have-
or don't like this? Let's see a thumbs up or thumbs down. Ooh, they're all going thumbs down.
Yeah.
As a head of school, I feel that if a child needs a day off, whether they're sick or they need a mental health day, that is their personal choice, but they have to make up from the work that they missed. And it's up to them to advocate for themselves. I'll say it again. It's a huge life lesson and something you need to do the rest of your life. to go to the teachers and say, what did I miss? And nowadays, every school that I know of has an online program. You go on, we have GradeLink, and you see what you missed and you get your work done. So if it was chronic, you'd have to answer to me. But otherwise, but they don't like doing that. Trust me, they don't. Otherwise, that's your choice. You want to miss out on the opportunity to learn? It's not a good choice, but it's your choice. And we learn more effectively from the mistakes we made than from the good choices that we make. So,
okay, I'm going to piggyback this because I am starting an internship program up with my brand Owl. And as I've been asking people, their schedule at class, I'm noticing that a lot of students don't really have class. So a whole different avenue. They purposely only take like one class that's in person and the rest are online. So to both of you, I guess, right? Like, where are we going with that? Because students pay high tuition fees. Sometimes their parents are paying high tuition fees, and then they're missing out on that in classroom experience, which, also comes with building relationships in the classroom setting. So I'll pick on you first, Kevin, and then Nancy, I want to see your perspective.
So what's the question again?
Just like, should there be a minimum how many classes should be taken in person? Because, a lot of students kind of work the angle where they take no class.
Gotcha.
Like, I literally interviewed someone. I'm assuming like this internship, let's work around your schedule in class. We'll do it when you go to the classroom setting. She's like, oh, don't worry about that. I only go to class for 1 hour on Tuesday and 1 hour on Thursday. I'm like, what? I'm like, you could only, in my year, when I went to University of Delaware, like I could only do that 1 or 2 classes max, taking like 15 credits or something like that.
No, I mean, I think it's a problem. I think there's a couple kind of challenges, but you certainly don't get as much value. All right. You can get some value from an online class. They were just talking about my classes have a tendency to have pretty high demand. And they were talking about making them kind of larger, like much larger, upwards of like 120 people.
oh,
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I don't like that. And they were like, well, if we did it online, we could have only 70 people. And I'm like, that's even worse. So no changes for the entrepreneurship courses as the future. Just register early if you want in. I think, value is going to vary. And I feel particularly bad, though, for those students that do have to work full time and have a lot of other obligations financially, and they'd love to come to in-person classes, but they just have to take online. But I do think that that's a good option for them, right? There are a lot of students here at FAU that are in that scenario. They really have to work a lot, and they'd love to be in person, but they don't even just need an internship with Jason. They need to also work at a restaurant and work at an office, and they may be wholly independent from their parents. So I think we do need options to accommodate them. But I think some students can, scam the system. But I think they're just kind of scamming themselves out of a great education, which I think we provide here. I know we do.
Yes. And there's also the issue that maybe some students don't know this, but online courses demand a lot more work because you're not in the class discussing. So practically speaking, you're going to work a lot more. And you're going to work a lot more by yourself. Now, I've taken online courses, and sometimes there are some collaborative assignments, but you have to find the person, and it's online and Zoom or whatever. And also, your interpersonal skills suffer. Communicating in person, which already is a bit of a challenge because we always have the phone in our face, right? And we'd rather text than our youngest child would much rather text with me than talk.
Those are both fantastic points because I do have one section of this course that's online in the summer because, hey, it's the summer. Professor Cox likes the beach and the jet skis and the stand-up paddle boards and stuff too. Okay, so we can do it online in the summer.
That's because you work so much at the gym all year long to get those abs. That way you can take that shirt off in the summer. I totally get it.
Yeah, a lot of trouble. So it's a lot harder. She's absolutely right. I'm building more assignments because I don't know what they're doing or what they're learning or what they're not learning. I can just ask you. And if you haven't learned something, then I know because we're live, we're real, we're in person. So absolutely right. A lot more work. Jason, you want to do this last new segment? Wrap this thing up today?
Let's do it. The Future You Education in 2050. Kevin's class came up with this new design. So Kevin, I'm going to let you do the honors. Let Nancy know about what this segment really means.
Yeah, so it's your chance to peer into the future and, as an industry expert, share with us and the group here today, how do you envision education in the year 2050? What has changed? Where are there AI powered tutors? Are there fully immersive VR? Are there holograms? Is it just kind of the same old thing? What does it look like in 2050?
I think it'll be much more diverse. I think the pandemic forced a lot of educators and parents to think outside the box, and not just private and public. There's all these other opportunities in homeschool, and then there's hybrids like mine. I think there will be a lot of AI, but they have to have that human element, maybe facilitating. And I think
Like
the whole
AI
math,
built into like a human android?
technology is not my thing, but I know AI is coming. We've already had a couple professional development days. My teachers have to figure out it's coming. So they
Yeah.
have to figure out how to use it. And our students are allowed to use it appropriately. So, but that's coming. It's going to be part of it. Absolutely. I also think curriculum will change drastically. The Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2 sandwich, as we call it, was devised over 100 years ago when the general public, the working class population, needed to know geometry and algebra. And I'm sure all of you at some time or another said, why do I need to know what a squared plus b why? And I would always say, well, your brain's a muscle like the rest of your body. You need to exercise it. I think that will change. I think it should change. Financial literacy is now a requirement for high school. That's a beautiful thing. Harvey was several years ahead of that, because I'm like, why do these kids not know how to, when I say balance a checkbook, balance an account? Your generation doesn't know how to write a check. Do you need to write a check? No, but you need to know how to balance your account.
Well, sometimes you have to write one, but every time I
very
have
rare.
to, I get so irritated. And I'm like, why are you making me do this?
It
What-
seems so old school, doesn't it?
Yeah, what
Yeah.
decade is your company from? Why is this the option I am provided here?
Yes,
Then I have to
agreed.
find them, and they're dusty in some drawer.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think money is going to be gone. Coins. It's going to be so kindergartners are not going to learn what a nickel, a dime, and a quarter looks like. I think the whole math curriculum in general is going to evolve, as it should, because what we're doing now was appropriate 100 years ago. It's not. I don't want to bash the math program, but it needs to evolve. Data. You need to know how to process data when you graduate, not know how to measure something.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that, like the high school or even college basic math curriculum, but at the same time, math and data have driven a lot of the developments in AI, which is kind of going to enable those. So it's really just the types, the forms, and the applications, right? And I tend to think a lot of it comes down to problem solving, right? Like that is the core skill.
That could be a whole course.
And it may not be a math. It's very rarely in my scenario and most people's a math problem, but there are problems all the time that need solving everywhere and all over the place. All right, so are we still doing grading in 2050?
Yes.
Or we got AI and robots for that? Really?
Yes, and we'll have some way of.
I hate
I'm
grading.
sorry, that's something I will never give up. You need to be assessed. Don't tell me you're doing so much better than you were doing in November. What does that mean? What does that mean? The world's not going to treat you like that. Oh, you're doing such a nicer job 4 months ago than you are now, or vice versa. Give me, what does that mean? Give me a black and white scenario of where you are as an employee. And so you need to get in the habit of, reporting on your abilities when you're a student, because that's the way the world's going to treat you. You got to show up. So I'm all about grading. I'm all about assessments, but they have to be fair. They have to be accommodated. And there has to be, in 2050, some way of discerning between the AI influence on this child's brain and what they did on their own. And that this child's brain needs to know how to work with AI to succeed at whatever the task is. It has to be a partnership of sorts, but that child needs to know and to be in charge.
Yeah.
about AI.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. My students know that for this course, AI is encouraged. That is the
Oh, it
course
has to be.
policy. Absolutely
Mhm.
use it, and use it to come up with some ideas for Friday, some real good ones, because we got to
What's
lock
Friday?
those all in. They're going to decide what project, what little startup company they are going to build throughout the next, I don't know, 9-10 weeks.
That's really fun. What a fun class you guys are attending. What I could have done with this many years ago. There'd be 20 Harvey Academies right now if I had this opportunity. So take charge of it. God
Oh.
bless.
Okay. Well, Nancy, thank you for joining us
Thank
on
you
the
for having
Shrooms
me.
Inc. today. Everybody tuning in. We'll be back next Wednesday right around 1 p.m. And how cool is this? Nancy is on the Owl app. So if you're listening out there, students, entrepreneurs, you could just follow her on that platform and call her one-on-one and chat about anything we discussed during today's podcast. Take care. We'll be back next week.
Thank
See ya.
you.